Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and for giving me this chance to share with you my very humble story. Um, I'm really happy to be speaking to you because if I know anything about you, it's that it's throughout May and David. And these two people, really, I think it's fair enough to say they changed a bit the course of my life. And they gave me real understanding and connection. And ever since, I didn't want to lose them from my life. I just kept connection with them, and I'm really, really happy to be joining you here. And I'm happy that you also are connected to them in this way. And because I think they are working with real courage and honesty and a vision that not many of the people in the world dare to have, which is a call for unity and a call for real justice, a call for truth, of sharing who you are, really, because growing up, I I've I didn't have these many places where I could be myself, especially when it was not around Palestinians. When there's a third eye, let's say, a third party who, other than Israelis, we always, as Palestinians, have to modify how we talk and modify our feelings. Even we're not even too allowed sometimes to feel what we feel. It's really something very deep. This colonial relationship to ourselves, and it's very important to meet people like Mai, because something about this complex gets resolved and you allow yourself to be. You really need free people to be free. So that's why I believe in community, and that's why I believe their work is really important, and that's why I am joining also my voice to them. So thank you so much for having me. I would like to say that I was born in 1995, so just 1 year into Oslo Accords. So I'm a young person of the Oslo Accords. I lived what it meant for Palestine um, to be dependent of Israel in water, in economy, in air, in land. We'd never had real independence. So whoever tells you that Oslo Accords was independence of any sort, it was not. Of course, raising amounts of checkpoints, settlements, and this is something that I've seen over the years. Every year, more settlements. Every year, more settlers, more army. So my life was very much shaped by the presence of settlers in the West Bank, and of course the very blatant limitation of movement, which my life now is complete opposite, because now I chose to live in Europe, which is not something very easy for a Palestinian to choose. Because Europe, in all its democracy and freedom, it still upholds superiority laws. You still have to be excellent, and you still have to be one of a kind to be able to stay in Europe. You have to play a very big instrument and to marry one of their own in order to be able to stay. So it's not like a very free land for everyone, as you know. But we're not there to talk about Europe. We're there to talk about Palestine and the West Bank and my upbringing in Nablus. So as I said, I was born in 1995, and 5 years in, or like 6 years in, I witnessed the second Intifada, as a 6-year-old, obviously. And I remember that we were displaced to my grandparents' house. And it's funny because I never thought of myself as displaced, but I now remember that we were displaced for 2 to 3 months in my grandparents' house. And one time we wanted to go back to our house, and there was a tank, an Israeli tank that separated the east of Nablus from the west of Nablus. And I remember my mom shouting at an Israeli soldier, and the tank drove to our car and pointed its trunk on us. And I remember that being the goodbyes, my goodbyes to my mom. I left my sister and my mom, and I took my brother because I really loved him. I just grabbed him by the hand with his school bag, and I left the car. I'm happy that the soldier did not do anything more. But my mom, I remember she continued shouting at him, even though he was still in front. And I was really amazed by my mom because I was like, wow, like even with this dynamic of power, she's still shouting. And even with this immediate threat on us, she's still shouting. And I think that was insane. And now thinking about this, I feel like I know where my courage comes from, because I always continued to shout and to speak for myself, even no matter what the danger was. So I thank my mom, who is here actually in this call. Yeah, so I went back to the car, nothing happened, and the tank went. Of course, it sounds very romantic now, but it wasn't. I wrote many things to talk about, but I want to focus on how I got to the music, because in Nablus we had actually a siege on Nablus. I think it was, I'm not so sure, but how long it was, maybe 2 or 3 years of siege in Nablus. We could not leave the city, and I remember that very well. I remember that my aunt lived in Hebron, and we wanted to visit her many times, and we couldn't, obviously. And I remember Nablus being kind of dead economically, and this is also what we've been living the last 2 years with the war on Gaza. Much of the economy has died in the West Bank. So I lived with these memories from the Intifada and the siege. And I grew up very much an idealist. I thought only if I was smart enough, only if I was outspoken enough, I would change the world. I would save Palestine. God, just give me the chance to share the truth about Palestine, and everyone will believe me, and everyone will come for help, to help me, to help us. Needless to say, that was not the case. And I was, while living in Europe now, faced with many situations of dehumanization and disbelief. And as May said, when they question your motherhood and your fatherhood and your own existence, this is really deep, and this is very hurtful as a person, as a feeling to any person, and therefore I'm all for any act or any resistance to this. I just went to the music school that has just opened in Nablus. That was how I got into the music. And I went with a violin. I had played violin for like a couple of months when I was younger, and I went with my old violin. And I went to the school and I told them I want to play violin. And they told me, sorry, we don't have space for violin. But if you want, there's a huge instrument and we have a teacher for it. And we would like for you to play it. It's the double bass. And you will be one of maybe the only woman in Palestine who would play this instrument. And you know what? When you walk in the street, people will look at you and be like, that's the bassist. And I just liked it, you know? I was like, yeah, you know, it fits my ego. It's perfect. And I was like, okay, sure. And my teacher at the time was maybe 35. I was 16. He was 35-year-old artist. Uh, he was a former mechanic. He plays also nai, you know, this Arabic flute or Oriental flute. And he was very sensitive man. He was a very sensitive man. And he was very kind man. And he really was a friend for me. And so I really loved him and I loved the instrument and I loved everything about the music. 1 year in, he recommends me to join the Palestine Youth Orchestra. And with this orchestra, I go to Jordan. And I'm like, what is this life? I'm going to Jordan, no parents, having fun. I'm performing in Amman. The year after, Norway, UK, France, Oman, you know, Turkey, I think. I forgot even where we went. I'm like, what is happening to me? Just because I'm playing this instrument. I get to travel this much. And every concert, hundreds, thousands of people are coming and they're wearing kufiyas, they're bringing the flags, and it's a huge celebration. We play some Tchaikovsky, some Mozart, some something, and then some Arabic music, and everyone starts to dance and doing dabke, and at the end of each concert is another concert. And I'm like, my God, doing art is the best thing in the world because you get to connect to so many people. We went and played in Holland, Concertgebouw, and I'm like, I'm playing Concertgebouw with Palestine Youth Orchestra. This is amazing. And the slogan of the orchestra was "Today an orchestra, tomorrow a state." So I really liked it. I was like, yeah, if we can do an orchestra, we can do a state. Why not? Then I go to France to study, actually not music, but something else. And when I was there, by coincidence, I joined the conservatory and my teacher encouraged me to do more music. And then I went to Berlin to the Barenboim Said Academy. And I did 5 years there of double bass. And it was a very big shift for me because the level, you know, in Germany, Berlin, it's like really the elite of classical music. And it was really huge. And I really needed to work a lot in order to make up for my last fun times with the double bass. Now suddenly became very serious and I had to practice a lot. And it was really something. Of course, I don't know how much you know about the Barenboim and the Edward Said story, but since I'm a product of this academy, I can tell you that they had met before, Barenboim and Edward Said together, and both were fans of each other. And talking to each other, they realized that they have so much in common, so much feelings for justice. Both were idealists also, and both were looking many steps in advance. And they decided to create this orchestra, the Divan Orchestra, in 1999, I believe. And then in 2016, the academy was created, and I joined the academy in 2020. And so during my studies, I had the music focus, but also I had a lot of philosophy, lots of focus on humanities, Edward Said's writings, and lots of conferences about politics. And I have to admit that I had no idea about Germany before I went to Germany. When I went to Berlin, I had no idea. Like, as a Palestinian, I'm fed up already with my life. You know, like my life is already too much. So I didn't have any space to know about Germany, the Holocaust, uh, the Nazis. Wow, German language. I had no idea. I was living in France at the moment, and I was speaking French, and already I was understanding what Europe was. And then suddenly I go to Germany, and we visit the Jewish memorials, and I learned so much more about the Holocaust, and I learned so much more about Nazism and all that. And then when the war starts in October 2023, I have Germans coming up to me and telling me, I was really worried about Gaza because from our history, we know that any attack on Israel results in massive destruction for Palestinians. So I was just sharing this with a German person. And this German person tells me, but 7th of October is one of a kind event for Israelis. And it might be true. But what he continues to say, he tells me, you guys, you're used to this violence. Like, it's okay what's going to happen to Gaza, but like 7th of October is like horrendous. And already, like, we're talking 1,000, 2,000 dead in Gaza. And like, do you even hear yourself? Like, I'm used to the killing of my own people. Like, can you have just one bit of empathy, please? And of course, Germany starts displaying Israeli flags everywhere and supporting Israel in the offensive. And I really feel like a big dissonance between me and Germany, and I had lots of emotions to go through. I had to understand that actually European Jews were Europeans, and so they were like the citizens of Germany, and they were killed by their own citizens, by their own fellow citizens, and I couldn't understand anti-Semitism. I couldn't understand because in my blood as a Palestinian, I don't understand how you can just revolt on another citizen. They just like dehumanize another citizen. I could understand if someone was not from your nation or you are growing up like what's happening in Israel, Palestine. I can understand this, right? Because this is my life. But I couldn't understand anti-Semitism. And then I understood that anti-Semitism is something European. And I was really shocked by how many Europeans were coming to me, the Palestinian, to rant about their guilt by dehumanizing me. So I know this is long, but I had many people, French, Dutch, German, coming to me. Then but so they are processing their own anti-Semitic history, and by dehumanizing the Palestinian, and by justifying the violence that's coming on me. And I didn't understand that at the time. I'm like, what's happening? Why are they attacking me? I'm the one being attacked in my home. So as a Palestinian, I feel like I have to rationalize a lot of things from many places. And I'm thinking to myself, it would be much easier if I just live in Palestine, because I wouldn't have these dynamics. I wouldn't know these histories, these so complicated histories. But as the Jewish are the victims of the Holocaust, now we cannot say we don't know. We have to know what happened. We have to understand Europe's complicity with anti-Semitism, but we also have to refine the speech about Palestine. So now that I am here and I joined the Divan, I have to explain so many things to my fellow colleagues from everywhere, the Israelis and the Europeans and the Arabs, Turkish, the Iranians. So the Divan is like a mix of Middle Eastern countries and also European countries and also American, with a focus on Palestine, Israel, but it's also bigger. And I think it's very simple in its core as an idea, like just bring people together. And somehow it seems very revolutionary because the reality in itself is so violent. So I think if we had less violence, this this orchestra wouldn't be something special. It's just, I feel like we have to go back to basics. And in this orchestra, I feel like we do. We give the chance for everybody who wants to join this orchestra to come together and to speak, just like here, and to share. And I have to say also that I did lots of joint programs since I was 15. I did Hands of Peace, Seeds of Peace. So even when I was a teenager, I traveled to the US and I sat and talked to Israeli teenagers. As myself, I was a teenager. And so at some point, I understood that it was not about this exchange of you did this, you did that. Like this had to stop. This, who's more of a victim? And I had to understand what's the extra level now? What's the one step in advance more in this? And in the Divan Orchestra and in these joint programs and in this joint platform, for example, I find this extra step because it does bring people together on another level. It's not more about, do you condemn this or that, or are you with this or that? It's more like, you are here and I'm here. Let's work together. And I find this more pragmatic, more human. And I have to say that what I had to go through, not so many people go through it. To live outside of Palestine already gives some distance. And this Edward Said talks about, by the way, the responsibility of Jews and Palestinians who live outside Israel, Palestine, to make these bridges. This is actually our responsibility, those who live outside, because when you live outside, you can have a bit of distance. Because when you are inside the land, it's much more difficult not to focus on the daily violence, especially for Palestinians. And also, I wanted to tell you how hard it is for me to play this role of advocate and raising awareness all the time about myself. Because, at some point you're like, I don't want to talk about myself anymore, or my experiences, or my suffering. It's not so important anymore. Now that, for example, this genocide in Gaza, what can we even start to ban? Where can we put the bandage? Like where, from which wound, I think we should be much more insisting on human values, much more empowered. We have to understand that evil can be so banal sometimes. It comes from stupid people sometimes. Hannah Arendt talks about this in her book, Eichmann in Jerusalem, The Trial of Eichmann in Jerusalem. And she talks about how bureaucratic systems and how societies nowadays normalize violence because you just have to get the order, right? This is what happens in the IDF. They just get the order and they do it. They don't have to be smart in order to be evil. Evil is something can be very banal, done by lack of criticism, done by an ignorance of impact. So when we don't consider what the impact of what our actions do, we can easily be doing evil. If we don't critically engage in what we're told to do, we could actually be doing evil. So we have to be very careful what we do.
There were two questions that were posted, and one was that, what are your feelings about the ceasefire? And another one was, would you be willing or able to share how German guilt would work against you? So these are two questions. And
yeah, actually, I will start with the second question, which is, how does the German guilt, or if it ever affected me? I have to say that Germany is extremely complicit in the genocide in Gaza because they provide 30% of the weapons to Israel, even after the International Court of Justice prevented or suggested that it could be a genocide, and after it was confirmed and there was a consensus, it still continues to provide weapons. And Germans like to German government. I have to be precise. German government likes to always frame it as a continuation of their support to the Jewish people, which I think is extremely mistaken, because they refuse the other Jewish voices. And in Germany, there is a preferred Jewish person, and there is the unpreferred Jewish person. So the preferred Jewish person is a Zionist, and the unpreferred Jewish person is any peace activist or any person who calls for solidarity with Palestinians. And we've seen this, and there's a lot of police brutality in Germany against activists, against German activists, against Palestinian activists, against Jewish activists. And this is very blatant when you see it, when you see Jewish people being attacked in Germany. And you're like, this is extremely paradoxical, because they, put on a pedestal, of course, the Jewish person that brings them money in the end. When they support with 30% the weapons, they are making a lot of money with it. And here I have to say that we have to also to make sure to look where the money is going, because there are a lot of technological companies now who are developing AI systems for drones, for things that were tested on Palestinians in Gaza. And many of these companies are European and American. So, for example, the owner of Spotify, he invested 600 million into an AI drone company. So this is my call to boycott Spotify, and also Uber, because they're also complicit, and they're supporting and they're putting their money in this warfare money. And we have to really, there's like a big boycott list, and I really encourage everyone to look at it and to see what are the reasons to boycott. And we see that many of these companies and many of the money is going to warfare, and they just want to keep making wars. So Germany is very much complicit in their actions, in their words of dehumanizing Palestinians. They copy Israeli propaganda per word. They have das Bild, or like the Bild newspaper is extremely Zionist. They dehumanize Palestinians on every possible level. And I know this from German journalists who work in these TV, one in Euronews, who just shares with me how much every story gets rewritten and redone in a way to support the narrative of dehumanization of Palestinians, and of course of this victimhood of the eternal victimhood of the Jewish people, as if a Jewish person cannot become at some point evil, which is also a dehumanization, because also all humans can become evil. So even Palestinians can become evil one day, and they were evil in some days. So it's not so like it's really paradoxical. And even there's a poet by the name of Mahmoud al-Ghassan, I think, or Ghassan al-Mahmoud, Ghassan al-Madhoun. And he talks about how German government has a superior tone with talking to to Israeli government, and telling them, don't worry, this is not genocide, what you're doing. This is self-defense, because we know what genocide is. We're the masters of genocide. And even in this claim that you don't know what genocide is, No, Israel is not committing genocide. And so even in this tone, there's a kind of superior knowledge from German government to the Jewish people or to the Israeli government. Excuse my going back and forth between Israeli and Jewish. Because, when Israel misuses the Judaism in order to justify itself. So this is one question. I hope I gave you an example of how it can become complicit, how Germany is complicit. The second one was how
That's on maybe you want to add something on the impact of the ceasefire or something.
Of course, yes.
That's important for you, for us to hear from your perspective.
From my perspective is, I think you also share, we all know this, like now there's a lot of work to be done in Gaza, and from cleaning the toxic materials, from cleaning the sea, from rebuilding the school system, the medical systems, all the systems need to be redone, need to be rebuilt. Of course, when Israelis left Gaza in 2000 or something like this, I imagine when there was like the settlements and they left, they killed a child just on the way out. This is just to tell you who we are dealing with. This government, this army is so far from morality. They, as May said, they leave dolls with bombs. They leave. Even I, as a West Bank, when I was little, I was told not to touch any doll that was on the ground, because you never know if it's bombed or filled with toxins or whatever. So we deal with a government that is extremely malicious and that have evil in every level of system. And then, as I said, it has so many people who follow it without criticism. So we have to wake people up. As May told me when we were in the Divan, he told me, this is a battle of consciousness. It's not a battle of religion. It's not a battle of ideologies. It's a battle of consciousness, of waking up to what is good and to what is evil and to stopping the evil. And I really believe so, because you can go back and forth with who did what and history and facts and all that, but that's not what it matters. That's not what matters. I mean, what matters is that we take one step more, 5 steps more up, and to take people in with humanity. And so my feelings on the ceasefire, the occupation is not over. I don't recall that any country in the world wants Palestine to be free, or that they want Palestine to be independent or sovereign. So we are far from having any political rights as we should. So the ceasefire, what is the ceasefire? I think it's an attempt to build back Israel's economy a bit. It's an attempt to fix the last edges that would break everything. If it continues the war, many things worse for Israel will happen. I don't know, maybe it's gotten too expensive, it's gotten too dangerous for Netanyahu now to continue, or is very simply not beneficial anymore. So I don't think it was a sudden wake-up call to stop the war, or I don't know how what Trump promised Netanyahu, what Hamas, what they were promising to each other. Nobody really knows. But the ceasefire, it's good because at least there was no more bombs falling from the sky. But the produce will be toxic. The water is toxic. Already some babies are being born with weird things, without eyes and with big tumors. And so what are we talking about? It's far from over.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.